the spatial arrangements that we have, which we have not been able to deal with it fundamental from the core. And a reflection of that and manifestations of that results into policies that results into schools that are underfunded, inadequate, trained educators, overcrowded classrooms, curriculum that is not up to scratch in terms of what must be done. Why are you raising the issue of underfunding of schools, MEC? Schools are funded according to the policies from the Finance and Treasury Ministry. I always say, Prof, to people, we are not funding schools, we are funding learners. Then schools are a beneficiation of that transaction that comes to learners. And once you have got dwindling learner numbers in any institution of learning, then there is going to be a problem in terms of stability of that particular institution, because the transaction talks to learners. Whether you talk about human resource planning, whether you talk about provisioning of learner support material, whether you talk about the school funding norms, you are talking to the kid, not to the walls. So once you have got skewed economic structure in the country that creates semi-urban and rural setup, which then encourages outward migrations within the communities, you are going to fall into the trap of having some rural schools not having money because there are no kids there. Kids has followed their parents towards the job opportunities that are there. The case at point, just to explain this for those that might not be observing the basic education in the province. The crisis DDG now, Dr. Mbude, in the province, is that you have got an FET band schooling system that is attractive. And the other layers that have got a dwindling decline of numbers of learners. Why? The people of the province are beginning to pick up confidence and trust on the FET band because of the results of grade 12. We have not yet convinced them on the baseline, the foundations for learning, for them to bring the kids at that particular level, so that you keep the shape of basic education like a pyramid-like, with a baseline that is a bit broader and thin at the top. Now it's an opposite. Now you have got primary schools that have got dwindling numbers, you have got high schools that have got huge number of learners. Now, you can't blame them. It's about the product you sell. It's about the confidence and trust that they have into the FET schooling system that you have. It's about the quality of the NSC that we produce in the province. Currently, we are rated as number 3 now in the country in terms of the quality of the results. Rated number 1, by the way, on the science faculties in the country as a province. Now, the reason for that is that when the province took a decision, program directors, of being a maths and science province, it then lowered the rate of pass of students. And that concept of the province being umkanja comes from there. Little that did they know that the umkanja concept was born by a decisive decision that stop making kids statistics. Stop making kids of vulnerable people statistics for pass and fail. create a career path that could guarantee them that post the schooling environment, they can change the socio-economic conditions of their own households. Ngamanye amagama, ingxoxo eyayiserious kakhulu le ezibonakalisa ngoku into yobana bekusuka kule nto yofuna ufundela upasa kusiyiwa kwi-transition yofundela ulwazi, so that you don't have kids that are passing in numbers, but you'll find them here in this township because they have got no entry points in any university by the way. So you are just creating a fame for you as an MEC, a fame for you as a principal, and a fame for you as government, whilst in actual fact you are burying the kids of the people alive. So that's why I'm then saying, these are critical questions. Are we aligned enough that our throughput of education system talks to the economic demands and supply that is needed? And how do we then usurp the capacity of the universities that we have in terms of the research programs that they have? One of the mistakes that I think, Prof, I must confess here, Eastern Cape is blessed. Eastern Cape has got best universities on the research throughput. But singabantu abathanda outsourca yonke into sifune uyokhangela uba ngomphi umuntu ebelele ngatyanga izolo onozosithengisela iproposal ye-research angayaziyo noba iqala kweliphi icala. Now, I'm then saying, you have got institutions that are internationally recognized on research capacity, but you go to a procurement to a person that has got sub-bid because he happened to have a company. Now, he must then come and commission the very same people that knows, instead of going directly to the universities that we have, so that we can build the capacity that we would want to do. The people of this country, colleagues, has agreed on the National Development Plan. I usually say, Doc, the NDP is the text. The author is yourself. The NDP is a text, the author is yourself. But the weakness that is confronting all of us is that we tend to be too comfortable with the status quo. We fear to venture into innovations that can create opportunities because of uncertainty of the systems that sometimes we use. As basic education colleagues, we introduced a campus which is called Education Systems Transformation Plan, which we revised in 2024 for the period up until 2029. Whoever assesses basic education in the country must look at this document. What does this document says? What are the gaps that must be closed? Are we closing those gaps? Or are we doing exactly what I was raising earlier on as a question to all of us, that we are used in routine governance? Routine governance means doing things because they were done yesterday, even if they are not relevant. No, kudala slab. We've been doing this for some time. And anyone who brings a new idea on the question is a threat. And therefore you must be seated with a ticking bomb, because those that have been assigned to think for others have taken a leave. Those that are assigned to think for others, we can't think all of us. There are people that are assigned to think for other people. But unfortunately, at times they are on leave whilst present. You see, they are on leave whilst present because you need to up the game, dog, in terms of the intellectual capacity of the South African nation for us to resolve the unresolved questions of this nation, in particular on education. So that's why I'm saying that document directs us into 5 pillars. One is the capacity building, the economic drive, the fourth industrial revolution, social cohesion, and infrastructure development. We just cited those 5 pillars so that we can be able to align education within the ambit of what the nation would want to achieve at a particular strategic period, which is 2030, the NTP. For example, if the NTP is saying to all of us, would want a particular number of architects, just for argument's sake, where are you going to get the architects? If that content is not taught in the classroom before it arrives here in NMU, you are the last lane on education. If the concept, the content of curriculum in basic education is not aligned to these strategic questions, how are we going to get the architects that are demanded by the NTP? And I'm then saying, those are the questions that we are battling up with. Hence, from time to time, you would see us revisiting the curriculum diversification of the province. Last year, we're opening up an innovation school in Port Alfred. And one gentleman asked me, are you opening up an aviation school in a province that has got no ablution facility? And I then said, no. Look, the fact that we have got a backlog on infrastructure does not mean that we have got also a backlog in terms of mental capacity. The crisis the nation is going to be confronted with on this question, it can't continue to pretend as if aviation faculties are a reservoir of foreign nations here. This is a threat to the sovereignty of the country. Not just in terms of those human resources that are on planes as drivers and blah, but the issue is, if then aviation and oceans economy is a catalyst for the 21st century to develop the nation and to develop the African continent better, who must do that? Must we allow other people to venture opportunities in our shores? Or must we develop ourselves first and foremost so that we plug them as other nations in the development of the country? If you observed, for example, in the province, we are an infrastructure site, a construction site in simplest terms as a province. There is no question about that. There is no province in this country that is as busy as us in terms of infrastructure development now. But the fundamental question, program directors, is who are those people that are building those roads? Where are they coming from? Which university were they studying? Which faculties? So that you don't just become excited on the development trajectory, but you begin to ask yourself, but after 30 years, if a bridge must be built by an Italian or a Chinese company, what does that mean about education after 30 years? So, in actual fact, it then questions the skills capacity of education in ensuring on the investment portfolios that could be there. So that's why I'm saying from time to time, we must be able to locate ourselves in the context of skills revolution, in the context of skills capacity, in the context of changing the outlook of the nation and the outlook of the province, and begin to say, these are the benchmarks that we are following, and these are the areas that must be achieved by whoever comes in any portfolio of government, so that we can be able to deal with that. How are we going to achieve that? As a province, colleagues, we've got what we call a learner attainment improvement strategy that talks to the capacity of the learners that comes here. That talks to the capacity of the learners that are here. But equally, Doc, we must be able to trace a kid from grade R. That's what learner attainment strategy means. When the minister is announcing grade 12 results, we must be able to say how many when they were in grade 1. So that you don't have kids that are just falling within the cracks of the system. And we became proud of announcing results only to find that we're announcing a quarter of grades of kids that were coming from grade 1 up until to grade 12. So when we talk of this learner attainment strategy, we are not just looking at the capacity of the learners, but whether the system is able to contain them, is able to channel them, and is able to preserve them with all the weaknesses that are there in terms of the capacity of the systems we use. There comes a question. In 2012, the Eastern Cape advocate for an African pedagogy in education. So that we can understand each other. The mother tongue bilingual education is not an academic exercise. It's whether are we able to pick up the social relations that are missing when the language policy is flawed. When the language policy is flawed, you understand the relations within the social setup. How do we deal with that question? And we're bringing that discussion, and the council now only adopted last year, Dr. Mode, for grade 3, grade 6, and grade 9. And the question has been, Doc, how are they going to get jobs if they are learning on the mother tongue, maths and physics? And my argument is that maths, by the way, is an African concept from Egypt. Whoever is doing maths internationally has got it from the African concepts. That's the origins of maths. So it will be a problem to underestimate how to locate the African content in the development of the world within that. But I'm happy because the spin doctor of that concept is here. She's going to present that document. Starting from that 2012 up until to date, and why now there is resistance in changing the very same tools that I'm talking about to be aligned to this question. I will leave it to her so that we can be able at least to be a bit faster. Colleagues, the translation of priorities into action will propose again a structured program of action that focuses on key transformative areas that we have lifted. I will share the document with you. I'm just trying to paraphrase it so that we can be able. But I would want also that we establish a joint task team, aligned policies, such as mother tongue instruction across the basic and higher education, share the research initiatives, and launch to explore curriculum enhancement and the pedagogical innovations with clear timeframes and measurable outcomes. The teacher training workshops co-developed by universities and Department of Education can equip educators with skills needed for multilingual and technological-driven classrooms. As we are migrating from the traditional learning programs into e-learning, the fundamental question that is going to come, what is the content on the gadget? Which language must be used on the content of the gadget that is there? So you still have a marathon to traverse in terms of changing how we think about ourselves, how we feel about ourselves, how we interpret even development as African people. Because we run a risk of a development that does not talk to us, that talks to somebody else elsewhere. So that's why I'm then saying, let's find a way of trying to narrow down our narrow differences, both on language and also on issues of transformation, but elevate the national question so that we can be able to build a solid, formidable school of thought that must come as a content-based schooling system in the country and also in the province, especially for rural development purposes, so that you can be able to build collaborations and build systems that respond on a number of issues that are there. I would leave you there. I will give the document. I was trying to summarize it, program directors, so that I don't take much of your time. But the key question for us as a province now, one, how do we achieve the 88% that we have set for ourselves? How do we maintain the quality of the results that we're known of? How do we make sure that in each and every science faculty, in any university you have in the country, the top 10 students must come from this province? How do we make sure that? So that you are able not to be surprised by 2030 when that ambition of the NDP has not been met. You must be deliberate on it and you must be structured on it. Your interventions must be particular and be precise, not ambiguous. Thank you so much.